Hello and welcome to this presentation. My name is Disha and I'm student in the MSc Counselling program at Bangalore University. Today I'll be sharing my dissertation research which explore whether combining two widely used positive psychology practices which is gratitude journaling and act of kindness can meaningfully improve self-esteem and life satisfaction. This study is titled as Relational Virtues, and I hope by the end you'll have some concrete evidence based ideas you can take directly into your practices. I would like to start by posing a question. Most of us are working in or training for counseling already, yeah? And we all intuitively know that self reflection and pro social behavior are good for our clients' well being, right? So we might already encourage journaling or suggest few small act of kindness as in between session task, right? But here what's the literature has largely left unexplored. First, what happens when we ask clients to do both of these things together at the same time? Do they reinforce each other or do they target different aspects of well being? And lastly, but crucially, what does the evidence tell us? So, that's the question this research set out to answer, looking specifically at two outcomes. First is self esteem, which typically means how we fundamentally feel about ourselves as a person. And second is life satisfaction, which broadly means cognitive sense of how well our life is going overall. So let's talk about what we already know. So first we'll talk about gratitude journaling, the practice of regularly recording things that we feel grateful for and has a robust evidence base. Wood and colleagues 2010 review identified gratitude as a significant predictor of well being, linking it to higher life satisfaction, positive effects, and optimism alongside reduction in negative effect and depressive symptoms. And then Dinkins in 2023 done the systematic review which further confirmed that gratitude journaling is reliably associated with life satisfaction improvements across diverse population. And now we come to act of kindness, and even act of kindness have an equally compelling evidence base. Nelson and colleagues in 2016 found that participants who performed kind acts for others reported significantly greater happiness than those who engaged in self focused behaviors. Regan and colleagues in 2022 further demonstrated that kindness activities produce uniquely strong feeling of competence, confidence, and meaning in the person performing them. Despite all this, very few studies has examined that what happens when both practices are combined into single intervention. That gap is where this study sits. Now, the theoretical case for combining these two activities comes from self determination theory given by Ryan and Dickey in 2000. The self determination theory proposes that psychological well being depends on satisfaction of three core needs. First is autonomy, second is competence, and last is relatedness. Now we'll talk about gratitude journaling. Gratitude journaling, as a reflective, inward looking practice, may primarily address autonomy and self awareness. Second, the act of kindness as outwardly directed pro social behavior may address competence and relatedness. And a combined intervention would therefore satisfy all three needs simultaneously, potentially producing broader and more comprehensive well being improvements than either activity alone. Based on this rationale and the existing evidence, the study proposed two hypotheses. First, that a 3-week combined intervention would produce a significant increase in self esteem. And second, that it would produce a significant increase in life satisfaction. Now, let's talk about the method section of this research. So, the study we used a quantitative within the subject pre post design. This means that participants completed measure at 2 points before and after the intervention, allowing us to directly compare individual change over time and while controlling for individual differences. Participants were UK adults aged 18 and above, and we recruited through Bangor University's Sona portal and few via word of mouth. So, in total, we collected data from 94 participants, and 94 participants were completed the pre-intervention questionnaire, and later we found out after cleaning the data and and cleaning data involved matching responses using unique participants code and removing unmatched cases. A final sample of 35 participants was left, and so the sample size is quite small, which is just 35 participants. So self esteem was measured using the well established Rosenberg Self Esteem Scale, which is a 10-item measure scored from 0 to 30. Life satisfaction was measured using the satisfaction with life scale, which is a 5-item measured scored from 5 to 35. So the intervention itself lasted 3 weeks. Participants were asked to engage in both gratitude journaling and act of kindness and their own discretion with a minimum expectation of once per week per activity. So, no structure or prompts were provided in those 3 weeks. Now, let's turn the results. Starting with self esteem, before the intervention, the participants scored an average of 12.94 on the Rosenberg scale, and after 3 weeks of intervention, the mean score rose to 15.74, an average increase of 2.80 points. A paired sample t-test confirmed this increase was statistically significant, which is t is equal to 4.20, p less than 0.001. Importantly, the effect size was large, with Cohen's t of 0.71. To give that some context, meta-analysis of gratitude interventions typically report effect size in the small to medium range, so a large effect here is noteworthy. At the individual level, 69% of participants showed an increase in self esteem across the intervention period. So, hypothesis 1 was therefore supported. Now, turning to life satisfaction. Pre intervention, the mean score on the satisfaction with life scale was 18.7. Post intervention, this score rose to 22.94, a mean increase of 4.17 points, which was statistically significant. T is equal to 3.14, P equals 2.004. The effect size here was medium, with Cohen's d of 0.53. This slightly smaller effect compared to self esteem is actually theoretically consistent. Life satisfaction, as measured by satisfaction with life scale, is considered relatively a stable cognitive appraisal construct that tends to be somewhat resistant to short term change. So, again, 69% of participants showed improvement while 31% showed a decrease. A degree of individual variability. So, I'll return to this point shortly. So, and again, hypothesis 2 was also supported. One of the most subtle findings concerned the role of engagement. On average, participants engage with the activities only occasionally. Mean engagement score were around 2 out of 5 for both components. Despite this, the group level improvement was significant. What particularly interesting is the pattern of correlation between self-reported effort and outcomes. Both journaling effort and kindness effort were significantly associated with self-esteem change, suggesting that both activities contributed to improvement in how participants felt about themselves. However, for life satisfaction, only journaling effort reached significance. The correlation with kindness effort did not. The pattern suggests that the two activities may operate through at least partially distinct psychological pathways. Journaling, a reflective, internally focused practice, appears to be more active ingredient in shifting how people cognitively evaluate their lives overall. Whereas kindness, on the other hand, seems especially important for self worth and confidence. Now let's come to discussion section. What we have found before, those findings speak to two theoretical frameworks. First, returning to self-determination theory, the pattern of results is consistent with the idea that journaling addresses autonomy and self-awareness, while kindness addresses competence and relatedness. The fact that they correlate differentially with life satisfaction and self esteem supports the view that they target different psychological needs and that combining them provide a more comprehensive intervention than either alone. The finding also aligns with Fredrickson's broaden and build theory of positive emotions. Both gratitude and kindness generate positive effect. And according to this theory, that positive effect broadens our momentary thought actions uh, repertories, in turn building lasting personal resources like self-esteem and life satisfaction. Their combination may have produced a compounding effect which could help explain the larger than expected effect size observed here. So, what does all of this mean for our practice as a counselor? Four key messages. First, this combined intervention is genuinely low cost and brief. It requires no specialist material, no professional supervision to administer, and produce meaningful effects in 3 weeks. That makes it a realistic candidate for between session task or psychoeducation work, right? Second, the differential engagement finding offer a clinically useful guideline. If a client is primarily struggling with low life satisfaction, which is a sense that their life isn't going the way they hoped, prioritize the journaling component and encourage effort and consistency in that practice. If the primary presenting concern is low self esteem, both components appear equally relevant. Yeah. And third, crucially, engagement matters, but even modest engagement showed benefit. Don't wait for the client to be ready to commit fully. Even occasional practice appear to produce meaningful change at the group level, which should give both clinician and client encouragement. Finally, but not the least, this type of intervention is scalable. It could be integrated into groups, psychoeducational programs, early intervention services, or community mental health settings, anywhere that cost and accessibility are important considerations. Before concluding, it's important to acknowledge that the study's limitation. The absence of control group mean we cannot rule out alternative explanation for the improvement such as natural variation in well-being or regression to the mean. Additionally, data collection coincide with the return from the Christmas period, a time when both academic pressure and post-holiday adjustment may have influenced mood and well-being independently of the intervention. Engagement was measured by self report and the post intervention stage only, which may not accurately capture day to day variation. And 3 weeks may simply not have been long enough for the full benefits to emerge, particularly for life satisfaction. Future research should ideally employ separate experiment conditions to isolate the individual and combined effect of each component. Extend the intervention period to 6 or 8 weeks and include follow up assessment to examine whether gains are maintained over time. To bring this all together, a simple 3-week combined practice of gratitude journaling and act of kindness produced statistically significant improvements in both self esteem with a large effect size and life satisfaction with a medium effect size. Even at modest level of engagement, these findings support the integration of combined positive activity intervention into counseling practice as a brief, accessible, low cost to formal therapeutic approaches, particularly for the client presenting with low self esteem or reduced life satisfaction. The practical message is simple: journal with your client, prescribe kindness, and the evidence supports it. Thank you for watching, and I would welcome if there's any question. Thank you.